Hey, it's a pretty hot day over here, at least for the time of the year. My phone tells me it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is the beginning of September in 2020. I am located in the Midwest, though, Indiana to be specific. However, in a few minutes, whenever I get to start the vehicle, I'll be talking about a feature that hopefully is going to help me cool off and be very comfortable in the car. The feature I'm talking about is called Forest Air. Forest Air was offered in the 2011 and up Infiniti flagship sedans. That is the Infiniti M56 and M37 when they came out. We'll be discussing Forest Air because there is a considerable amount of people out there that have questions about it. People want to understand how it works. In fact, we've had a few people go as far as calling it a gimmick. I disagree, but instead of arguing back and forth with people on the internet, I decided to make this video. So I'd like two main questions to be answered in this video. One, does it work? Two, how? All right. So I think the video will start now. Let's talk about what Forest Air is or is supposed to do. Then hopefully as the video progresses, you'll be able to see what it's not supposed to do and what, basically whether it does that or not, it is still functional, right? So Forest Air is a system that was introduced by Nissan. Around this time, they were focused on this concept called life on board. Basically, during the drive, there are a lot of things that can be stressing, things that cause fatigue and things like that. So Forest Air is meant to do two things. It's supposed to enhance the comfort of the occupants of the vehicle, one, and two, supposed to ensure that people get clean air. So two aspects of Forest Air that we'll be talking about: comfort and clean air. And these concepts, they're not. I will try to discuss them as distinct features, but everything in this video will be kind of tied into everything else. So it's a whole platform. It's a whole system that was employed. It's not like 1, 2, 3 different menu items, although we'll be able to enable and disable some features. So let's answer the first question. Does it work? Yes, it works. It is for the reasons, or rather for the purpose that Forest Air was introduced or implemented in the cars. Comfort and clean air, yes, it does work. As the video progresses, we'll be able to break down exactly, and hopefully as I demonstrate all these different features, you'll be able to go into your own car and prove that yes, it does work or it does not work. I think good thing and bad thing, it works very seamlessly. And it is one of those features that does not come in and just kick you in the rear whenever it comes in. It is not abrupt in its operation. So that can be a good thing or a bad thing. On one hand, we got people like me that look at, once you fully understand your vehicle, I look at a vehicle and they say, wow, it's crazy. All these features in the vehicle, I really don't understand how Nissan gets away selling such a nice car for a very low price. However, because it is very seamless, some people look at a car and say, wow, this car is so expensive. Why can't they bring in more features to make it worth the money, compete better with other companies? Personally, as I said, I am in camp one because I am a fan. I am a believer. I've had, a few Infinitis, Nissans over the years, and I, still had faith in the company for as long as I can afford buying any of their cars. Even when I can't, I still do appreciate what they do. So this vehicle here is a 2011 Infiniti M56S. It is a fully loaded model, and it does have a feature. How do you know that you have a feature? You get this button over here. See this button with the trees and a breeze going through? That is a Forest Air button. If you did not have the Forest Air button, you'd have the partner button to this one, the one that usually accompanies this one. So this one is the inside air recirculation. The one that lets air from the outside is called the fresh air circulation button. So that's what you'd have here if you did not have Forest Air. And that right there is a hint as to one of the main things that Forest Air does. It takes it takes place of there's a recirculation component to forest air, and we'll break it down. We'll talk about it in more detail. So as I said, this feature was brought in when the Y51 model chassis came out, and that is the 2011 and up Infiniti. The Y51 chassis is 2011 and up, which is the M37, 56, 35 hybrid, the Q70, Q70L, Q70 hybrid. However, this feature, as I said, if so equipped, you'd see it on the button, but it was only available for certain trim levels. That is the deluxe trim package or the sport trim package. And if for whatever reason you can't get to a car's center console to inspect its buttons, I'll give you a hint. If your car has a 16 speakers, the surround sound, and you have the speakers in the seats like that, and you also have a sunshade, and this is a sunshade button right there, that is a pretty good indicator that your vehicle has forest air. You know, maybe you can look at the VIN and break it down and all that. But wait, there's another catch. This feature is not for every single Infiniti from 2011 and 2019. It was only available until 2014. So that is something we'll talk about. I don't know the decisions that went into it, but it is not every single vehicle has forest air, right? Stopped in 2014 for whatever reason. So some things, maybe I should get to starting the car right now, and then I'd like to point out a few things when I started. It is getting hot. I've started getting sweaty over here. So let us start the car. Better not let me down. Okay, I want you to look at the screen. There are a few things we'll come back and talk about later. One, you see it says quick clean over there. Auto defrost, the fan automatically. It's been set to auto, and so look at that. And then forest air info, look at that. We'll come back and explain all these things later. There's a color here, color there. Oh, it's already cleared up. All right, so what else am I looking at? Go back. Forest air info. 70 degrees. Let's set it for 73 or 4. Okay, we'll be back. One thing, I'm going to set the temperature higher so you can just end up reducing the fan speed. I want to be able to speak a little clearer in here. One thing I want to make note of is that it's almost impossible to speak about forest air without talking about the AC system, just in general. The AC system, well, apart from the utility of safety, defogging your windshield and things like that, your HVAC system, I've been calling it the AC system. I mean the HVAC system in general, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. It's for comfort purposes, right? So I have been vocal about this. I'm a proponent of leaving things in auto. I just change my temperature setting and then just push the auto button and let the car decide what it wants to do. If it is in the winter, and well, let's work with summer because we have summer. If it is in the summer and you want to cool it down, so let's set this for 60 degrees, closer to 60, you'll notice that the airflow is focused on the top. If you want it to heat up, which would be more dramatic in this winter or the fall, you'll notice that it now shifts to the bottom. So that's physics right there, right? That hot air rises, cold air will descend. And that's how you heat a volume, a vehicle, or whatever capacity you have. In that, if you're trying to warm it up, You warm your feet, and it's just going to rise and warm everything. A car is pretty small if you think about it. If you're trying to cool it down, you just make the cooling go to the higher areas of the vehicle, and then it's going to descend and cool everything in uniformity. Maybe you like a blast of air towards your body and face, things like that. So I'm a big proponent of living things in auto, generally. And we'll come back to this. I'll try to isolate these different factors, but it's like a spaghetti bowl of factors. Everything kind of relates to everything else. And I need to show things like whenever you have your system in auto, let's go to status, right? It's in auto right now. Let me turn off my radio. It's in auto. And if I mess with the fan speed like this, look at this light over here. The light goes off and it stays in auto, okay? Or rather, it stays in whatever fan speed I've set it for. I'll set it to auto, then it's gonna pick the fan speed it wants, and it's gonna tell me that, hey, we're in auto, the light comes on. I can also mess with that. Like right now, it's chosen to dump most of the air towards the upper parts of the body. And if I went here to choose my vent mode, again, this light goes off, tell you that you've now messed with the auto system, right? And I can go back to exactly what it was right there, but it is still in auto, right? Or rather, still off. It's not in auto anymore. The air conditioning is still going to work. The AC is still going to work. The AC is on. It's still going to work. It's just off, right? And I have to mention something else. I like that in this car, they took away the AC button over here, because sometimes you'd get complaints from people saying, hey, it's in the winter, I've turned on my my heat, but why is my AC still coming on? I think it's that it's misconstrued that AC means cooling. AC can work at any time of the year. Air conditioning is just that, air conditioning. It is moisture control. It's the way I choose to define AC. And so I like it here that in this system, once you turn your system to on or to auto, you don't even have to see it unless you go into the menu buttons to see it. And I can turn my AC off. All right. And obviously that goes away. And you'll notice the forced air button also went off. And I can turn it back on by either hitting auto. And forced air did not come on this time. By turning the forced air button. Or let me turn the AC off again. And it's not auto this time. Then you turn the system on. Look at the forced air button. When you turn the forced air button, it wants to turn the air conditioning on. So there are things like that. You could choose to recirculate or not recirculate your air like this. So it's recirculating, and you'll notice that the forced air button went off. I can turn it off to whatever it is. I don't know what the system was doing, whether it was, I think it was bringing it in from outside. And although you've done that, it still decides to go to the, whatever, the forced air is still turned off. So you activate it by turning it on, and it turns the recirculation button off. When this is off, it just tells you that it's off manual mode, you know, so that's what it's telling you. What else? Vent control, recirculation, forced air. The different aspects you can mess with in the forced air. For example, as I said, you can turn off, if you turn off the AC, the forced air goes off. The different things you can do. Forced air setting. Breeze mode. I turned it off. Huh, interesting. Okay. When I'll come back to a proper demo of the forced air system, and you'll see that sometimes you can turn something off, which ends up making the forced air system not work. But all you have to do is just turn it off, then on again, then it turns everything that it's supposed to turn on at that time. Okay, so I've shown you what the buttons do. I think everything works better whenever it's left into its own devices in auto, but we'll come back to that. The thing we'll be looking at is, I wanted to I kind of hinted at it in the beginning, but the bounds of your vehicle HVAC system. On the low end, you have 60 degrees. This is the minimum you can set it to, at least in the US. Then the maximum you can set it to is 90 degrees Fahrenheit, right? In general, your car will do its best to give you the temperature that you demand for right here. And these are automatic climate control systems. I don't think any M has manual systems with, I mean, you can play with things manually, but you know, it is for the most part an automatic system with thermostatic controls, so to say, closed loop feedback. So I also wanted to say that although whenever you have it on auto, it decides whether it wants to turn the AC on or off. Most times it's going to be on, but there is a protection circuit. Your air intake, the one that's coming into the cabin, there is a sensor over there, and whenever the evaporator in the car ends up low at 23 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, it cuts off the AC, because there's really no point at that point to blow that air to you. And then the AC is cut off, and eventually it will turn on when, I can't remember if it's 32 or like 35 degrees Fahrenheit. There are a lot of numbers relating to this system, but that's just going deep into the weeds. I'm just mentioning numbers for the sake of it. So forced air, which is our main topic of discussion today, however, only operates when your ambient temperature, your outside temperature, is 32 degrees Fahrenheit and above. So there is an aspect of forced air. As I said, it's about comfort inside, and it uses inputs from inside the vehicle and also outside the vehicle to decide, yep, I think this is what we want the inside of the car to be. And we'll talk about all these different sensors. There are a lot of sensors. There's like an exhaust, there's an outside air sensor, let's just call it that. There's an outside temperature sensor, there's a sun load sensor, there's an inside air quality sensor, there is a humidity sensor inside. There are quite a few sensors that we'll be talking about. Okay, so one of the things, I guess at this point we'll switch over to the features of your forced air system. I'll reiterate this, I'll say this again. Forced air is for comfort and clean air. Let's discuss the comfort point of it, okay? So comfort, on the other hand, comes in two different ways. One, humidity. If you're in the Midwest, if you've been to the Midwest or lived in the Midwest, you've heard people say lines like, well, it wouldn't be too hot if it weren't for the humidity. So humidity is a big function. Out of all, you know, whenever it comes to all this, humidity is a concern. And I have mentioned that AC can be defined as moisture control, right? The normal system, whenever you set your temperature, the AC comes in and decides it conditions the air, prevents too much moisture in the air, it dries out your system. And this one right here, forced air, is now a step up. Forced air makes sure that, this would have been an interesting scheme to play as I speak. Forced air ensures that the air is not too dry nor too humid. It's not just about drying out the air, it's about making sure that the air is neither too dry nor too humid. Generally, when you have whenever you have normal AC running, it's gonna keep the humidity in your car to a certain level, because this is just, at that point, it's just a physical, it's just a physics problem at that point, right? Just dry out the air. As long as the AC is running, this is what we're going to do for it. Pressure in the system and whatever the system capabilities are. Whenever you have the forced air system activated, it lets the moisture be just a little higher. The moisture level is just a little higher. And forced air actually can work with AC on and AC off, right? So you have air conditioning, great. You have forced air with AC on, forced air with AC off. It decides where it wants to be, right? Obviously, AC off is bad because your moisture level is way out there, but forced air is a step up from that. So the component that, and I was trying to catch this in the beginning, is the component that determines, or the sensor that helps decide what the humidity nature in the car is going to be, is a sensor that's located over here. This is your rear view mirror. This is called your front camera finisher. There is a humidity sensor over there. It is a dual mode sensor, dual purpose sensor. It measures the temperature of the windshield, and it measures the temperature inside and the humidity inside the car. So one of the main functions, as I said, is that moisture control, is that it prevents the windshield from fogging up. And two, it keeps the air inside the cabin for the occupants at a suitable comfort level. So you can usually, let me do this. Can you hear that whining noise? It's kind of like buzzing noise. Let's turn forced air off just for a second. Doesn't change much right now, but this is what I can do. Go back. Let's turn the AC off. You can hear that. It's a, what do you call it? A buzzing noise. The reason this car is kind of loud. It's got a variable AC compressor, and whenever the AC is on, I don't know if this will actually come out, but you can hear the car gets a little louder. There's a noise that comes out of there. Sometimes people would report like a squealing noise whenever you turned off your car. But that's something, that's a discussion for another day. So there you go, the buzzing is back. So that is the AC system. This I've kind of hinted at it, but the things that work in conjunction with this sensor over here, you have what is called a sun load sensor, this guy right here, and this sun load sensor can make determination between what the driver's side versus the passenger side is getting. There is that. There is the temperature of the outside. There is the vehicle speed. It looks at all these different things and makes a determination that this is the humidity we're going to give the inside, the occupants of the vehicle. All right. So I wanted to mention that what will turn this setting off, the setting for auto humidity. One, once you start messing with your fan speed, it turns there you go. Oh, this is a good example right here. So the auto humidity will, you know what? Let me just skip that part. I will come back to it. Okay. The other aspect of comfort I'd like to discuss is called breeze mode. And I think breeze mode is it is known. I think a lot of people do at least know that there was something about a breeze mode. Remember, goes with the name forest air. When they were doing this life on board thing, they said, well, a forest is some of the most serene environments we can think about, so let's give it a breeze. And breeze mode fluctuates the effect of fan speed. Breeze mode will determine, or rather will look at the fan speed, right? Whatever's going from your blower motor right there, underneath there, and it's gonna randomly modulate your vents. So these vents up here, the front vents and the upper vents, we've talked about the upper vent in a different video. It's gonna modulate them, and sometimes you can usually hear the vents opening and closing. But what it does, it causes it's not a constant thing. It's just random. It's meant to make it feel natural, right? So it will determine its own thing. And just like the auto humidity sensor, breeze mode looks at the solar insulation into the car. So it's going to look at solar insulation based on the sun load sensor, this one right here. And then it's also going to look at the outside temperature, and it's going to decide, well, this is the kind of breeze that this guy wants, right? So, and I'm looking for a way to trigger all this so you can see it coming into action. There you go. Did you see that change? Let's play with it again. Okay, so this is how I'm gonna make it happen. Look at that screen over there. I'll make the breeze come on. Did you hear a sound? There's a clicking sound that comes in whenever the breeze mode is working. Can you hear the clicking sound? There you go. That's the door vent modes, operating the different vents. I can feel the air over here. Yeah, then it's dead right now. Nothing's blowing. Then it's blowing again. Can I get like a receipt or something to demonstrate this? Okay, watch this. Can you see that? There you go. And it's gonna lie, and when you hear the doors opening again, you'll see this start blowing up. Do it, do it, do it. There you go. So it's blowing right now, right? And that's why I can't sit there. So the car automatically decides where it wants things to breeze and things like that, and you've been able to hear the vents. So right now, actually, let's do a demonstration. Let's do a demo of the system. You can turn breeze mode off, by the way, and that's what it was in the beginning of the video. You've heard the clicking going on and off, right? You can turn that off. And when you go back to view the forest air info, no breeze. Did you see that breeze come up? So let's go back and turn breeze mode on. Okay, so there you go. And then within breeze mode, you have something called fan speed variance, and this is it. You can have it on high or low. I will not be able to demonstrate this because it's something that works behind the scenes. Basically what it says is this: your low wind and your high wind, what is the difference in them? When you have a low variance, that means, you know, you have a lot of fluctuation between the winds. When you have it on high, you have a larger delta between your high wind and your low wind. So it is something that I really have no way of demonstrating, but I just wanted to show that it is something you can change your setting to. Go back to info again. Info just shows you what the system is doing. So you can see it's breezing right now, right? Now I'd like to show you some of the things that you can innocently do that will inadvertently turn off breeze mode. One is trying to play with the fan speeds. If you want it cold or hotter. Did you see the breeze stopped immediately? Let's turn it. I've told you about this, how you can make the system. So right now it says forest air is on, although the auto is off, right? Let's turn forest air off. Well, I guess we turned it on. You saw the light was on, but it wasn't breezing, right? It wasn't on auto. That's the thing I was trying to talk about earlier. You can make an aspect of forest air go off, but then the light will still be on. So what I usually do, just to be sure, most times just come in, turn this off, then back on, and it will turn everything else it's supposed to on. The other thing you can do to mess with your breeze mode is actually trying to select your vents. So like this, cut breeze mode off completely. All right, so once again, just hit that. Although the light is on, hit it on, turn it on to activate everything. While I'm here, I'd like to talk about that, to also demonstrate the other comfort setting that I was talking about, which is the humidity forest air setting. Here it's called the auto defogging sensitivity. You can change the sensitivity of your sensor, or rather of your system, how the system reacts to the sensor. You can have it fast, in that as soon as any little fog, it's basically how fast do we clear the fog. So as soon as fog or mist or humidity is sensed, you can have it immediately come on and take care of it. You can have it slow, or you can have it off. And then I'm going to jump out and show you something. Status. So right now, I don't have, was it on in the beginning? I can't remember. There's usually another button over here, or another icon over here. You see this auto? This auto relates to this button over here. There's one called auto defog, or auto def, or def. Usually it's the auto def above here. Let me see if I can get it to show up. Oh, I have it on off. No wonder. So let's make it moderate, which is where I usually like it to be. And whenever you go to your home screen, see that? Something else came up, hits the status button, and there you go. You have auto defog, right? So whenever I mess with the system, I can make that automatic defogging stop. And it's something that unless you know what you're looking for, you wouldn't really know that you've basically crippled the capability of your forest air system, at least the defogging function of your forest air system. So how do you turn, what would you do to end up messing with your defog system? One, playing with the vents. Watch this. Did you notice that both those auto defog and auto, both buttons went away because of that auto button, right? So let's do that again. Turns everything on, and just like the breeze mode, playing with the fan speed, turns everything off, right? And I guess to demonstrate what I was talking about earlier, that your forest air system works whether you have the AC on or off. So right now you see both of these are on. Let's turn the AC off. The AC compressor is turned off, but our defog system is still on, right? So yeah, it still does its thing to defog the car. Remember, the main thing of your AC system is maintaining this temperature, and it does whatever it needs to do to engage the temperature. Gets outside air, the blend door, and it mixes hot air and warm air and cold air, recirculates air from inside. It does whatever it needs to do to make sure that we give you this air. Then it's going to do its magic to decide how fast do we need to blow air at you, and you know, all those other things. So again, this right here, we could hit the auto button, and the auto button typically turns the AC on, or we can turn it off. And I've demonstrated this. Whenever you turn, as much as the forest air button is on right now, off. When you turn it back on, it ends up turning the AC on. Did you notice that? So again, this is one of those cases that I make for leaving the auto button, just letting it be, leave things in auto and let them be. And I guess for good measure, you could just auto on, auto off. Sorry, touch it off, then back on. Well, I guess auto doesn't really do anything. It doesn't go off if it's on, right? But the forest air one, you can touch it twice. And right now, you know, it kind of takes, it's hard for me to tell you these are the times that the light will still be on, but your functions are shut off, versus the light being off actually tells you that forest air completely is dead, right? So I think that kind of shows what's going on. And initially I wasn't gonna do anything about this. I did not really want to show this, but thinking about it, I wanted to say, because I've talked about the upper vent in a different video, right? You guys can look at my previous video and see the upper vent and what it's supposed to do. However, what I did not indicate, so you could see that the forced air setting, when you do that, it shows the upper vents and the front vents, right? Upper vents right there. So if you so chose, when you went to the upper vent right here, you could turn that off. Okay, you can see it, your lights are still on. It's still, this is automatic, so it's deciding what it wants to do. Okay, however, you'll notice when you go to the forest air info, well, it's not breezing. Was it even breezing initially? I can't remember. But when you do this forest air setting, you notice my breeze mode has been turned off. I can't even change this fan speed variance because breeze mode is off. And in this situation, turning the forest air off, then back on, does nothing for breeze mode. I could try to force it on, turn breeze mode on, and when you turn breeze mode on, what it does, it turns the upper vent on. So upper vent is tied in with your breeze mode. Without the upper vent working, then breeze mode is kind of useless. And remember, the thing I said was that upper vent it's auto upper vent. The car decides when it wants to operate it. Just because the upper vent has been turned on does not mean it's constantly going to be on. All right, so just wanted to put that reminder there. Then the other thing is that let's go to breeze. How do you make the breeze work? How do you trigger the breeze to work? We know that manipulating the fan and the vent controls turns it off, right? I've already shown that, but let me do a little bit more of this. Let me show it a little clearer. The way I manipulate the breeze is just changing the temperature setting. There you go. There's some temperature settings that, the car says, well, why do we even need the breeze right now? Remember that the breeze mode looks at outside temperature, inside temperature, and there are a lot of different parameters that it looks at to decide when to trigger the breeze. So I felt like when I recorded the video initially, I probably glossed over that, and I just wanted to do it a little more justice. Okay, with that going on, let's do this. Climate, upper vent. You can already hear the doors closing, right? Upper vent on. Well, let's do this again. Okay, forest air on. Let's look at info. What's going on here? No breeze right now. It's kind of... Oh, I know what happened. Because my breeze mode got turned off. It didn't take too long to... And we said this does nothing for the breeze. Okay, so breeze mode is on. Everything is working like it should. Go to climate. Upper vent. Turn that off. Okay, you can hear the doors shutting. Then forest air info. The breeze has been cut off. So we decide, hey, let's do it one way. Is forest air on. Doesn't come on yet. Upper vent, turn it back on. Go to forest air info. Nope, not doing it. Go to forest air setting. So breeze mode, I guess it's really your upper vent preferences basically end up taking precedence over whatever you have for breeze mode, right? However, I've already shown this, that if you went to your upper vent and turned it off, well, I should show that the breeze mode now turned on. If you go to your upper vent and turned it off, which will mean that your forest air is going to be, your breeze is going to shut off. What you do is go to setting, turn your breeze mode on. Oh, I thought that was a live graphic. I was gonna say, what? I thought I saw it happening. So breeze mode. Okay. And upper vent on. It's interesting. It's like, I hadn't really caught it. I suppose you can't, let's mess with the breeze mode like this. Turns off the upper vent immediately, right? It's just something, it probably happened in Hawkeye, people would have noticed that, but I just wanted to record the video again and call it out specifically. So how do we fix this? Remember, either auto or the forest air button. Okay, that's a lot of conversation about the breeze mode. So I'm gonna take this clip right here and insert it into the original video that I recorded. I hope the sound quality won't be too different, and as you can tell, it's recorded at a totally different time, different day. Yeah, I hope that helps clarify things a little bit. Do you notice that right now, no matter what temperature I get it to, I can't get it to breeze? Yeah, it's one of those smart things I talk about, that breeze mode, it looks at so many different sensors and decides, yep, you deserve a breeze today. Versus, hey, no, don't worry about it, no, no breeze for you. And it's still clearing it. A little funny. Well, it's 67 degrees Fahrenheit, so no matter what temperature I set my my desired temperature to be, the car decides whether I'm gonna get a breeze or not. So it's one of those auto things. But I think the upper vent was working. I could feel it go in and out. Well, I guess that was based on the temperature I set it to. Yeah, right now it is supposed to be. It is, it's just that the fan speed is so low that you wouldn't be able to tell it. So some times of the year a little better, or have a little more dramatic effect whenever you try to watch or to look at forest air behavior. If I were to just if I were to like record this screen at startup and then like throughout my drive, my commute to work, I bet this screen would be way different from, from August through February, I think just as you go through the seasons, it's gonna look so different. I'd like to repeat this again, that forest air is there for two functions: comfort and clean air. So while we're here talking about info, you can see there's a breeze and there's things like that going on. I think this is going to be a pretty good segue into our other discussion, which is going to be what can we see on the screen? You've seen the breeze. You cannot see the auto humidity function here, although in the winter maybe you could try it. Whenever your car fogs up, I can't get it to fog up right now, although we're pretty humid over here with ravines and all that. I can't get it to fog up at this time of the year, but in the winter maybe you could jump to this info screen, and whenever your windshield is fogged up, at least by the sensor, your windshield is going to be white. So that's how you see how the fogging thing is. Let's turn off the defog, by the way. Let's see what that does. Force air setting, sensitivity off. Let's go back to info. Yeah, it doesn't change. I was trying to figure out if that green changes. That green is like I believe that's the plasma cluster, but it doesn't really turn off. We'll discuss that in a bit. What happens if we make it real fast? Nothing changes. I like it moderate, so there you go. All right, so the other thing I guess we could talk about is the colors. Why we have the blue, and we have the blue arrows and the blue dots. The first thing is this one right here. That's air quality. This is air quality. Air quality outside the vehicle, air quality inside the vehicle. I'll try to find this clip and maybe put it here, but in the beginning of the video, when I started recording, the outside air was orange. That means outside air was considered to not be clean. Inside air has been blue for the most part, but I know for certain I've had it show up as orange in whatever situation. So I think that's the thing I'm going to talk about, is the clean air part, the clean air part of it. Okay, and it's kind of, I think it's a nice crossover topic over here from all these different settings. We can see breeze mode, speed variance, and you can do outside inside air mix. Okay. As part of your settings, you can choose outside inside air mix. I'll come back talk about it, but first I need to talk about air quality. Okay, so one aspect of air quality, or rather the main function of air quality, is that it wants you to have the cleanest air available, right? If inside air is clean, it would like to keep recirculating inside air. If outside air is clean, then we're gonna end up using some of it, right? So you have one of the biggest components of all this is called an outside odor and an exhaust gas sensor. This thing is located in your front bumper, somewhere around the upper grille, I believe, but that can be checked later. And what this sensor does, it determines automatic air intake control, right? If the air outside is dirty, then shoot, it's going to end up giving you, telling you to reuse inside air. And the way it does that, and that's what I was talking about, this forced air button taking away the function of the circulation button, is that you can change this. You see now it's circulating air inside. When I hit this again, it's getting air from outside. As you can see here, it's still manual. The forced air is still on. However, it's on manual mode. And there was a way you could kind of play with this. So when it's lit up, it's recirculating. I think if you held it down for 2 seconds, 1, 2, blink once, and it's getting it from outside. It doesn't say manual mode right now. Blink 2 seconds, it blinks twice. I think that usually, oh yeah, so sorry, I think something was happening, and well, we're touching it that I didn't notice, is that I did not make note of, was when I hold this down. Yes, I changed the mode, but it's not telling me inside or outside air quality, because right now it's saying that, sir, you just told me to get air from outside. That's all I'm doing. I'm not telling you anything else. However, again, looking at that forced air light is still on, just touching it, that turns it off, then boom. Now it's telling you, yeah, I'm getting air from outside, but the air quality is as indicated over here. And I'll have to go back to the beginning of the video to show you this, but at startup, generally, the car doesn't care about outside air, and it's usually working on inside air. And this is a part that maybe I can demonstrate better if I go back to the videos of the beginning. But do you see this icon right here that says clean with ion over there, right? So that right there, those are called plasma cluster ions. And these are usually released by something called an ionizer. And what those do is basically, I can't remember, it's like equal parts positive and negative ions, but the ions generally come in there, and their purpose is to neutralize bad air that comes into the vehicle. This ionizer is located near the driver's side vent, so it's like on top of the vent inside there. Can't really see it, and it releases ions that will neutralize the bad air coming in. And at startup, this is what happens. So this thing right here, it's also sensitive to, it is determined by airflow. So like right now you can see it say ion, but at startup, for at least the first 40 seconds or so, since the car is just focusing on cleaning up inside air, just rushes through cleaning up inside air, it usually shows something different. And let me show you that. That's what you'll see at startup. Quick clean, but then at some point it relaxes, and eventually all you get is clean. So I'll tell you that for one, it just says, screw it, I don't know about the outside air, but let's just clean the air that we have in here, and then we'll kind of make things work. So I'd like to jump from that aspect of outside air and segue into inside air, right? And tell you there's a part that also determines inside air quality. We've talked about the sensor on the outside, and that sensor in the bumper basically looks at outside air quality. When you come inside, you have another sensor, this one here in your right knee bolster area in the US, and the inside air quality, or rather the inside air quality sensor will look at the air and say, oh yeah, we need to kick up a notch, we need to increase fan speed or whatever it is, we need to filter this air a little more. And increasing fan speed generally will increase the level of the ionizer being released. So let's manually do this. Let's see if that does anything. I'll play with the fan speed. Did you see that? Increasing the fan speed changes that to quick clean versus just a clean. I'll hit it on auto. We'll get back to that. So this ionizer here says whenever you're increasing the fan speed, that means you're getting more air. When you get more air, I'm gonna pump out more ions. That's all. It's a pretty, I guess, basic correlation in that case. And that one does not get negatively affected by fan speed, right? So there's that. The purpose of the inside air quality sensor or function is to make sure that the air inside, the bad odors that are usually in a vehicle, do not stick around, do not linger and get embedded in your upholstery. I think testing was done for 3 main things that constitute inside air quality. 1, cigarette smoke. 2, body sweat or body odor. And 3, food. And in that order, I think the ions are designed to kind of fight food odor, not exactly 100%. Those kind of stick around a little bit. Body odor is kind of well regulated, and the one that is almost completely killed is cigarette smoke. And I can tell you from personal experience, I know this because I once bought an M56 from a smoker. I know the guy smoked, but whenever you come into the car, there was no smell at all. And I know cars that have been cleaned, and know cars that have been detailed and things like that. I know this one was not. But smoke smell, gone. So I'm not a smoker, but maybe I'd encourage you, as long as you don't have any people who would be at risk with you smoking in the car, go for it. Smoke in your car. I mean, it is supposed to be a luxury vehicle after all. What's the point of getting outside of your vehicle to do your habits or your whatever it is you're used to, right? So give it a try. Give it a try, I guess. If I had the heart to do it, if this was not Corona time, I guess I would have bought a cigarette and lit it up in here just for demonstration purposes. But so that's the thing. That's the whole purpose of interior air quality. And so let's do a demo. Climate. Forest air info. So you've seen the recirculation, you've seen whenever it decides whatever it wants to do. Under settings, you could choose between the outside and inside air mix. It's just a preference, right? So you can have it prefer outside air, or you could have it prefer inside air. Okay, so I've set it to inside air. Go back to info, and you'll notice that it's still getting outside air, right? Although it is on, it is still getting outside air. So remember, I mentioned that thing is just a preference. It's not 100% setting. And it actually, all it gives you is 20 to 80% preference. So you cannot fully say, yep, I want you to give me outside air all the time. Oh yeah, but while I add it, please make sure that you're giving me good air quality. It just says that I would prefer, whenever you can, to go ahead and do this. And again, that's one thing I leave in moderate. I think what situations would you want it to prefer outside air? I don't know, maybe if you drove in maybe in a forest, for 1, or 2, if you drove or lived near like a perfume factory. You know, the industries like that have really good smells, like Wacker, for example. I worked near one of those, and actually had good smells coming out once in a while. But I know for environmental purposes, you're supposed to get no smell. When would you want it to not to prefer inside air recirculation? I didn't know if this would act with a touch. Yep, sure does. So maybe you would want that example I gave about working near the Wacker company. Wacker is Wacker, German company. I worked in an industry that supplied stuff to Wacker and smelled like corn. So maybe if you lived in such an area, you'd want your car to preferentially get out inside air. You know, it just depends on which one was more overpowering and which one was, I guess, more pleasant to you. Hey, now I had to record this. I've never seen the air quality indicators looking like this. You know, I know that they decide whenever they switch between recirculating air versus bringing in air from outside. But then, and I was just driving, you know, when you're driving, you'd see outside air is kind of funky. Then inside air, maybe it's funky, so it takes in air from the outside. But I don't know what I ran into. But at this point, I'm still driving right now. But at this point, oh, there you go. Suddenly it's clean. I'm kind of leaving the city right now. So when the outside is cleaner, gets it from the outside. Oh, there you go. It's just really, really odd. I've never really seen that happen. So I wanted to kind of highlight that. It's really quality content over here. I hope this phone camera is good enough to capture what's going on, and I'd like to see when it decides to switch. So I'm about to turn into, I've never seen it like that, honestly. And you know what's funnier? It's still just stuck at clean. It doesn't really say quick clean or anything. So it's interesting. I can never really try to play God with this system. All I do is just set it to auto and let it decide whenever it wants to come on, whenever it wants to breeze, whenever it wants to get it from outside, you know. So right now I'm pulling into my subdivision, and I'm hoping for one, it will clear out because I'm away from traffic. And yeah, see, the outside keeps getting better and better, and I think it's running into this issue where it gets outside air, then if it's dirty, it gets it into the car. So it's like, okay, let's clean up. Oh, there you go, finally. I don't fully understand what did it, but there we are. Let me open the door. So before you get too lost in the details, there's another aspect of air quality that I wanted to discuss, something that you don't really see often. It is the in-cabin air filter, which is usually behind the glove box. For these vehicles, what you have is a Grapeseed polyphenol filter, or polyphenol filter, depends on what part of the world you're in. And what this does, it's a special one, which usually whenever you buy your in-cabin air filter, it's expensive. But if you buy by VIN number, they will give you that correct part number for you, right? It's kind of hard to get, but, you know, it just depends on how much you want to pay for your filter. So this in-cabin air filter, the Grapeseed one, what it does, it is for catching allergens. It inactivates allergens better than a normal standard air filter. And so, again, as I said, I'm sorry I can't show you anything right now. I can't take my car apart for this. But I think this is where some controversy comes in, and people don't fully understand that, you know, it's grape. Well, am I supposed to be smelling it or not? I think when I smelled it, it had no odor to me. And it's something that, like most filters, that tell you change at least once a year, things like that. So it is something that should be periodically addressed, right? Once a year or every 12 months, whatever you want to. No, it's every 12 months or 12,000 miles. I think that's what they usually say. But you do what's best for you at that point. I want to give you an example of how the whole system works together. One, I've talked about you know, the example of the inside air quality. I've talked about whenever you work like in an industry and the outside smells. I gave the example of inside air quality by talking about the cigarette smoker, right? The previous owner who was a smoker. I want to give you an example of a situation where inside air quality actually works. It's passive, but it works. So I've mentioned that I used to work in an industry that supplied material to Wacker, and they did this by corn production. Smells in the area. I lived in Iowa at the time when I worked over there. And something else about Iowa, at least the highways that I used, the Avenue of the Saints, St. Louis all the way to St. Paul, Minnesota, right? The thing about using that highway generally, no, that's not it. Was that it? No, that was a different route. No, well, whatever. Let's just put it like this. The thing about driving in Iowa is hog farms, pig farms, my friends. So pig farms. I think the existence of a farm in itself is not bad, but my understanding was that sometimes they would capture the urine and the excretion from the pig and have those like in a lagoon somewhere. So you have this, it's a pit, it's a pond, it's a crab pond basically. And this is supposedly good manure, good ammonia and things like that. And I think the existence of that just stinks. Every once in a while, if you were lucky, they would spray this stuff in the air, spray it into the farms, right? And boy, that was a different kind of smell. So every once in a while, there were certain places I knew when I drove through these areas, I would usually smell it. And when you have a car, normally you smell it, then you're like, oh, no, recirculate your air, recirculate your air. Then people tell you, well, if you keep recirculating it, it's already in the car. So just let it, do its own thing. But, it would linger in the car for maybe 5 minutes or things like that. So when I've driven the highway like 2 different occasions when after leaving Iowa, but I had an M56, and the M56 had, as I said, forest air. So whenever I drive through this area, I know that you would briefly, just a second, smell it, just like, wow, pig farm, but then immediately kill it. And whenever you'd look, you notice that I didn't notice that my fan speed had increased, and that clean thing had turned into quick clean. So it is something that I just wanted to say that I have witnessed it. I know it works. If you live in one of these areas that have really crappy, whether it's farmland, industry, or whatever it is, just play with the forced air button and see what it does for you. And 2, so with all that, I mentioned that part about the filter, right? The gray filter is for allergies. I had some seriously bad allergies, and this time I started working in a steel company, and they had their own coke ovens, and man, it was horrible just the first time starting out there, because it was spring, which is allergy season, and 2, the stuff that these guys just put in the air, whether it was filtered to EPA standards or not, but it was there, and it would just make my eyes burn, my chest. It wasn't a very pleasant experience starting off. Eventually I got to it and got different medication to help with that. But what would happen whenever it get there is that I noticed that it depended on what car I drove. Whenever I drove the M45, that one right there, like, I would feel pretty horrible. But whenever I drive the M56 in that area, it was pretty pleasant. See, now that's that thing about using the correct filter. Oh, look at that. Outside air is bad, and it decided to recirculate. Oh, isn't that nice? Yeah, it just decides with, I guess right now, I don't know what horrible air it's smelling because we're not in traffic or anything, but this car has been running idle for a while, so I'm sure its exhaust is in the area. I guess this would be an interesting one to run in the garage. It would never run outside air. Oh, while we're here, let's try to force it to preferential outside air. Let's see what it does. Preferential outside. Oh, well, it cleared up, I guess now. I'm not really sure. Oh, let's do that, assuming it's borderline clean. Yeah, it's still on the outside. Again, still does not, this goes in accordance to what I told you. It's not 100%. It's like a 20 to 80 allowance for what you could jump into. Okay, so I've spoken about the system, and I feel like I've covered all the relevant parts of it. People usually ask, so how do I maintain this system, right? It's simple, honestly. all you can do for this system is one, replace your air filter as frequently as you want, and two, don't block this sensor, and three, I guess this one right here, don't block this one either. Don't mess with it. I don't know how you block that. You have a leg that goes all the way there. I don't know. And I suppose keep the front of your car clean, since your sensors are in the front of the car. I've always wondered, can I trick like my sensors, my temperature sensor? And by the way, the temperature sensor is not the outside air sensor. Outside air sensor is like behind the grill. I think the temperature sensor is lower, like in the lower grill area. Can I like drench it with water and confuse the car as to what the temperature is? When I got in, I thought it was like 80, but this one's saying it's like 86. So I don't know. It's just things I've always thought about, just haven't. I'm kind of crazy with ideas, but I'm not crazy enough to follow through every single idea that comes to mind. So, you know, I think that's about it. That should be it for the video. And maybe, I think I'm getting close to an hour, so I should end the video at any point. But I'm not going to do that. I think it's worth mentioning the one thing that I think is controversial enough that makes some people think that the system is a gimmick. And this is the Aroma Cartridge. In other markets outside of the US and Canada, I think outside of North America, I know Europe gets this, and I think, you know, Japan gets it, but there's something called an Aroma Cartridge. The Aroma Cartridge, its purpose is to give you certain smells in the car. And I think the part that makes people think this is a gimmick is like, hey, is my forced air working? I cannot smell anything different. I cannot tell that there's anything different happening to the car. So whenever that doesn't happen to people's expectations, they think that the system is a gimmick. Well, you can disable it, or you could, but thing is, it's not really taking any more from you. So most people just leave it alone and tolerate it because they think, well, it's useless, but it's there and it's free, might as well use it. The Aroma Cartridge, physical location, it's on the end of the blower motor. And then it's got tubes it's got a motor that opens and closes the door. And then you have tubes that feed into your vents, right? So I think my understanding is that, as I said, we do not have it in the States, but we have most of the hardware for it. So these tubes, there's like an Aroma Cartridge in there, basically whatever elements. They look like desiccant packets, things like that. So air comes into that tube, the door opens and allows the air to go into the vents as needed. And I'm trying to remember when it decides. I think there's a correlation with air quality and when it decides to give you, you know, when it releases the puffs of air. But it's noticeable. I've been told that as long as you have something in your Aroma Cartridge, you know, the refills, that you can usually smell the difference. So this is the part that I want to address, the controversial part of it. Remember, the purpose of this forced air system is clean air and comfort. So the Aroma Cartridge is supposed to address the relaxation part of it. There are 2 scents in the cartridge generally. I think there's a leaf scent and fragrant wood, I believe. And these are supposed to be calming and also enhance concentration for it. So a smell that, you know, like, say, what smells keep you up, like pine and things like that, I think. So I don't know why they chose that North America was not going to get this feature. The hardware is there. I think the harness is there. It's just, and I don't think you can just plug stuff in and make it work, because I think they have to be activated in your AC and auto amp and your AC and what do they call that, amplifier? But there's a component behind the head unit that has to be activated as well. I don't know anyone in the US that has made it work. So personally, this is what I'd say. Who knows why? But the US being what the US is, I cannot blame somebody if they say, hey, we're not going to make anything that will calm you while driving. Maybe you'll sue us whenever you fall asleep. I don't know. There's an aspect of being alert in the sense, but for whatever reason, they decided not to. I mean, it's pretty cheap compared to the rest of the system. Why not just put it? But it is pretty expensive if you don't have it and you're trying to buy it to make it work. So that is something that don't fully understand why, but I wanted to say, if you just wanted special scents, I mean, go buy your own scents. I have something that I use here. You know, it works decently, but what I don't know is, does the inside air quality, does my ionizer end up killing it? You know, I don't know. So the ionizer, I think those special scents that are in the Aroma Cartridge are maybe made in such a way that they will work with the ionizer. The ionizer is not going to consider them bad odor, or I don't know. I know there has to be some chemistry involved in making vehicle scents, as well as the ionizer, that they don't fight each other. Or maybe it does clean it up anyway, and it cleans it up along with the other bad scents. But this is what I wanted to ensure here. It is okay to not smell the Aroma Cartridge. Your forced air is still functioning whether you or not you have an Aroma Cartridge. There is a lot more to the forced air system than just having an Aroma Cartridge. So this is the other thing I was talking about. There's the first level where it was not presented in North America, the Aroma Cartridge, and then forced air was dropped in 2014. You know, it's that thing that is it that people did not appreciate the system? Is it that it was too expensive to install? I really don't know, but we'll talk about, you know, maybe this is a topic for a different video, as to Nissan's culture. And sometimes their marketing is kind of goofy. Like, talk about the stuff that makes your car unique and cool. You know, you can't talk about, people don't believe, you know, you can't just talk about driving, power, handling, suspension. All these things are really great and in a really good balance in an Infiniti M, but maybe there's always someone faster. There's always someone who can handle better. There's always someone cheaper. There's always someone more luxurious, you know. I just think the M's are really, really good compromise above everything else. And you have things like the four-wheel steering and things like that. But again, these are things that were all dropped, but again, that's a video for another day. I think I am done with the forced air system now. But wait, there's always a bonus with my videos, isn't there? I wanted to show you something else, make a case for my wanting to leave things on auto. This bonus relates to the blower motor and fan speeds and vents. I don't know if it's going to work here, but I wanted to show something during startup. Let's turn the car off again. And this M56 better not let me down. We're going to start it again. Let's watch the fan speed as it comes on. Okay, so it started at 0, but it's ramping up, right? Okay, yeah. So at startup, and you'll notice this more likely in the winter, you'll notice this more evidently in the winter whenever, you know, your ambient temperatures are way colder and your coolant is way cold, that in the winter you're trying to heat up the inside, right? So what happens is that the blower fan will not be immediately on, and usually I've shown this in a different video, that you have to drive for a little while, you know, your engine coolant is going to warm up, and then your blower will start running. And that temperature, I think it usually looks for around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what it looks for, to make sure that at least when I'm blowing air at you, that it is not going to cool you down or just be uncomfortable air. That's the first part. The second situation is that whenever you have your doors and your doors are changing, this is going to be hard to demonstrate in the in the summer, obviously, or fall. I guess fall and winter will be better, but at some point the door mode changes. So right now it's blowing to the face, but at a certain point you can change it to, it's going to be a borderline. There it blows into both, and you heard the doors opening, right? Listen to that. So you've got this borderline area that things happen, and whenever that happens, your fan, right now it's kind of tricky to show because obviously fan speed is going to go low because it's saying the temperature he wants versus the temperature outside. This is, let's just slow down the fan speed. No one needs to be blowing anything. But whenever it automatically decides to have a high fan speed, usually whenever that door is changing modes, it reduces the airflow. It reduces the speed from the blower motor, the fan, so that your doors are not fighting against full flow of air, right? Reduce the air so the doors can open a little easier, then the air ramps back up. So that's something you might notice, again, if you leave your system in auto and do things like that. So the third one, though, it's something I'd like to demonstrate. Voice control. Whenever you have your voice recognition system working, this one here. And I've mentioned that in subsequent years, like the 2006 and up, all the way, it's like the newer the cars became compared to the older ones, the 2003, the Q45 and the 2003 and 4 M45. Those earlier cars had really good voice recognition. You tell them something, they hear you almost immediately. I usually have such a hard time controlling anything with these cars, but I'd like to demonstrate this fan thing over here, that whenever you activate your voice control, and I will cancel it almost immediately, like this.
Would you like to access phone,
I don't care, so I'm going to cancel.
Information, audio, or voice recognition is canceled.
Well, it wasn't dramatic enough. Let me change my setting so that the fan speed can go all the way up. Let's do this again.
Would you like to access phone,
Cancel.
Navigation, voice recognition is canceled.
Did you notice that the fan speed was down and then it ramped up? So right now, I hope this video is coming out clearly, but I know whenever I have phone calls and it's blowing, the microphone up here catches all that and people can't hear you very well. But the fan speed usually ramps down so that you can speak whatever it is you need to speak. All right, let's do that again.
Would you like to access phone, navigation, voice recognition is canceled.
All right, so that's one, and let me take you back to a reasonable temperature. So let's do that in manual and see what happens. It's ramped up all the way to maximum, right? Voice recognition.
Would you like to access phone,
Cancel.
Navigation, voice recognition is canceled.
Did you notice at this point it did not change at all? Yeah. So I guess that's one of the other reasons I usually talk about that. Leave things in auto. Enjoy things as they were designed to. But again, everybody has their own preference, right? Most people like the temperature, the environmental temperature, to be between 71 and 74, I think. And I generally like 73. Sometimes I need to change it because I want it to blow on the upper body versus my feet and things like that. I do acknowledge that sometimes people have different preferences, but it is enjoyable as you leave, if you leave things in auto, or rather, that's when you get to fully maximize the benefit of your auto systems or of your luxury car. That's my spiel on that. So I think being that that's a bonus, it should end, but the video is already like almost 1 hour long. So let's add bonus on top of the bonus. This is just gonna be me speaking and giving my opinion at this point. So you've seen how cool the system is, and that's with an hour. That's all I could tell you. I think to have a fully fleshed out discussion on the HVAC system and the different features and nuances, not only in the in Infiniti vehicles, but maybe covering other options, like what do other manufacturers do, what do other people do for air quality. You'd need a proper class in school, a semester, maybe a 1 credit hour for 1 semester, maybe. But I think you'd need something like maybe 4 hours just to kind of talk about all the different components, so we can touch this and lick that, look at that, different things in this car. So because right now I've just been sitting inside the car and pointing at different things, you're going to need quite a lot of time to discuss it well. But at least you've been able to see that this system is a little more complicated. There are layers to this, right? There's levels to this. So I think I'll go back to that part I was talking about in the beginning, that Forest Air and other manufacturers that implement systems like this can be a double-edged sword, right? It is maybe too seamless. It just works really well, kind of like the four-wheel, steering. Some people don't know how well does that work or not. It's a system that works so well when you do. If you don't know what you're looking for, you're definitely going to miss it. Forest Air, it answers, the video answers the question. Yes, it works. I've been able to tell you how it's supposed to work and how it works and how you can test it, but it is too seamless that a lot of people don't really acknowledge its existence. So we've talked about people who ask, well, is it a gimmick? I can do without it. Why in the world was it even put there? And I think maybe it's a culture thing. Maybe think about Western versus Eastern culture. I think maybe someone outside of Western culture will make something great and say, yep, it's a good object, just enjoy it, everything is great. Versus maybe different cultures will be more about, hey, you better stand on the hill, blow your trumpet, toot your horn, let everybody know how great that little thing is, and talk about that, hammer it out. I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but I think the Infiniti M line suffered the same thing that Infiniti has, or Nissan has always had this marketing thing that they don't really talk about it that much. It just never seems like it. I mean, I'm not saying that if they talked about it, maybe people would have been buying way more Infiniti M's. I don't know. I don't know if Forest Air by itself would have been that. I don't know if more people bought these cars and more people talked about Forest Air, that it would have continued beyond 2014. I really have no idea. I can't say that these few factors are the main factors that affected how the Infiniti line basically ran until in 2019, and then that was it. I don't really know, but I just feel like, unlike the way other companies do things, where you have an okay product, then you improve, you add this and add this, there's certain features that Infiniti, oh, look at that, it automatically went there. There are certain features that Infiniti dropped that they should have kept, or would have made their cars a little more attractive in the long run. But then maybe someone did that market analysis and said, well, don't worry about the Forest Air. They don't even know that it's there. So drop it. Who cares? And, I don't know, but it's an interesting thing to talk about in September 2020, because not only has the model line been discontinued, but, we know the kind of troubles that Nissan is having financially, and the Infiniti line kind of being redesigned, rethought about, whatever you want to call that, right? So it is just something I wanted to talk about. And with those few words, Eddie out.